Thank you guys for hanging out with us here at Let's Talk About Cannabis, learning about weed, its effects, and everything that has to do with your life. My name is Edgar from the New Guys, 97.1 Amp Radio. We got Mike from the world famous KROQ, and straight up just a fountain of wisdom, Dr. Drew. Does anybody have any questions in regards to marijuana, weed? Yeah.
Yeah, how about, can smoking weed really damage your lungs?
You know, the old-fashioned way, yeah. It's almost every chronic marijuana user that I treated had chronic bronchitis, which is a relative of emphysema, that kind of thing. So it does. There's been concern over the years of lung cancer. Never really made a tight connection with that. The stuff I've seen is more the airway damage from smoke. I mean, you put a smoke in your lung, it irritates your airways. That's it is. And there are lesser damaging ways of doing it. People vape and people volatilize it in different ways, and so it's less irritating. But ultimately, you're still putting a hot volatilized substance into your lungs, and it irritates. But not as bad as the smoke itself. The smoke really damages the lungs.
A lot of kids at my school, since I'm only in middle school, they're not really smoking weed, but they're vaping a lot, like hardcore vaping.
With weed?
What?
With weed?
No, with like vape, like they
just whatever.
Yeah.
With tobacco?
Yeah, and nicotine and stuff. And so like when they're not vaping, they're really depressed, and like kids in 8th grade are like all really different, because I have a lot of 8th grade friends, and so they're like completely different when they're not vaping. So
yeah, there's concern about vaping leading to cigarettes, and cigarettes are what kill you. And that's another grave concern of mine. Vaping may help adults get off cigarettes, but they are not helping young adults and adolescents. It's making things worse. So it's an important thing to know about. Yeah.
You said vaping, like marijuana. I've heard about that, like THC in like a vape pen. What are the like effects of that? Because I've heard that that's like 80% THC compared to a lot less. And
so it's highly concentrated, right? Mm-hmm. It's a way to get a lot in. And the thing about smoking a drug is that it goes through your lungs. If you eat a drug, it has to go through your system, it goes past your liver, gets into your bloodstream, has to get absorbed through your gut. When you smoke something, the entire surface area of your lung is exposed. It goes through your heart and right to your brain. It's an immediate large dose to your brain. And obviously smoking and vaping is the way to do that. And vaping is a high concentration of.
Yeah, I've also heard about wax. What does that do?
Wax is a super potent version of cannabis. I've seen more toxic reactions from that than anything, because it's very hard to, edibles too, by the way, I've seen toxic reactions from that, because when you are eating the substance, it's hard to figure out exactly what dose you're getting. People can regulate the dosing a little differently when they're smoking it. But wax is so potent that people can get toxic reactions with very limited exposure, and people vape it. People put it in the vape because you only need a tiny little bit.
Dr. Drew, can you explain what a toxic reaction is?
Toxic reactions, when I describe a toxic reaction, I'm really talking about an agitation or a panic attack or a frank psychosis, where you really aren't connected to reality anymore. And you end up in an emergency room with a toxic reaction typically.
And also, what about vaping weed? Does that have the same effect on your lungs as smoking it?
Less than smoking. But there is concern about, over time, having cumulative irritation on the airways. Again, we're talking about the airways of the lungs. You know, just think about it. Anytime you're inhaling something, it can irritate your lungs.
For any more information you guys may need, go to letstalkaboutcannabis.com. The facts are there, so you guys can make your own decisions.